Hello everybody, welcome to part 2 of the Craftsman lawnmower here. Okay, so we last left off, I took the blade off, I dropped the oil out of it. I noticed this. This lawnmower had its ass kicked. The deck is cracked here. It's cracked here. It's probably cracked on the other side too. So this deck is no good anymore. But at least we got a good engine out of it for 20 bucks. So what I will do with this deck is I'll just strip everything off. I'll take this whole assembly off. I'll take the height adjusters off it. Maybe this back piece here in the handle and use it on something else, but the deck itself is cracked. So when you go out to buy these mowers, yeah, like I was saying, check for holes in the deck and also check for cracks. So, okay, so what I'm going to do now is I just dropped it down just to show you. There's only 3 bolts to hold the engine on. So I'm going to put the machine on its side and we'll take those 3 bolts out and pop the engine off. I degreased the whole engine and everything, cleaned it up real good. So I'll pop the engine off. I'm going to paint the engine, and I still have a couple other parts that we took off, like the gas tank and the carburetor. I have to scrub them down, clean them up. And over here on the top housing, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to, this you definitely see, you know, so that has to be painted. I mean, from the factory, they only gave it like quick paint jobs because you have this cover that goes on top. But I'll paint this up, and I'll paint what you could see real good and everything. And I'll be back to you. At least 24 hours ago, when I knew we were going to be using this engine, what I did was, these are the mounting bolts that come up through the bottom. So what I did was I took some PB Blaster and I sprayed them real good. There's 1, 2, and there's one on the other side, so I sprayed them up real good. And today, I already loosened the bolts. They came loose, you know, with no problems. So I'm just showing you this way by tilting the machine. What I did was I tied the engine down. But what you could do is, what I normally do is, I just take 2 bolts out, loosen up the third one of them that you could get from this side of the engine, and then you could just, like, more or less, sometimes I lay it down on a 4x4 or something like that, and then you can more or less just reach under there and pull the glass bolt out that's holding the engine in. So I just almost fell on my ass. So the important thing is that you get these bolts to be able to come out without any problems. Alright, this is taking too long, but you know what I'm talking about with this. And then what I do is I clean up these bolts real good. And Turning Wrenches 85 is a good friend of mine. He has a YouTube channel, and I'll leave a link to his channel. And what he likes to do is he likes to put some anti-seize. He cleans up the bolts, puts anti-seize on here, so you don't have that problem with them being stuck. So that's a great idea, but I have no anti-seize, so I'm just going to clean these up and put them back in. Check out his channel. He has some real good lawnmower videos. We're a tight-knit community, all our friends, in the small engine world. So he's a really good guy. Check him out. Okay, so I set the engine back on, and I just plopped the mower up on this 4x4 here, And then I was able to reach under here and catch the first bolt. And I tightened it up some, not all the way. And then I'll just tilt it on the side and put the rest of the bolts in. But I won't do that on camera. And then I'll put the blade back on, because we already dropped the oil out of this engine. And in the meantime, after I painted the engine, there's plenty more other things to do. I cleaned up the gas tank and all the other parts that we're going to use for this mower. And I also sharpened the blade on it. And I did a little cleaning of the carburetor, but I didn't take it all apart because it ran pretty good to begin with. So what I did was I took and I cleaned this one port here, which was, I don't know if there was a little dirt in there, I don't know. I just took my torch cleaning tip here and I honed that out real good, and then I sprayed some WD through there, through that port. And then there was 2 other ports here where I sprayed the WD through, and I could see everything was flowing okay. And after tilting the carburetor upside down, I got all the gas out of the bowl here, so I sprayed some WD in through here and through the fuel inlet. And of course it goes through where the float is, where the needle and seat is, and that seems to be operating pretty good. And we'll get on with the rest of it. So before I even dropped the engine back on, I put the muffler back on it and tightened up the bolts. And the reason why I did it with the engine off is because you have these tabs here. This one's easy to bend down over the bolt. It's to keep the bolts from backing out. And this bottom one here, the tab comes up this way, and it's a real pain to bend the tab up sometimes when it's on the mower. So I did that. And now I just bring you back around and we'll get going with the rest of putting this together. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to mount the carburetor first then. So you're going to take your O-ring here that slides over the manifold, and you're going to put that on. It's the carburetor gasket, actually. And then I'm going to take the carburetor, and then you just have the one linkage that goes through where the throttle assembly is here. And then you're just going to push this up on the manifold. And there's 2 3/8 head bolts. Now these bolts here, they're not threaded all the way down. I mean, you could tell the difference. These are the carburetor bolts. From doing it for so long, I just knew right away which bolts, you know, because I had everything together on the tray. Now I'm trying not to break this gasket here, which I almost did already. Another thing I want to point out too. While I had this all apart here, there's other bolts. I'll show you in a second. There's other bolts that hold this plate on. They're always loose for some reason, so I did tighten them up because they were loose. So any bolts that you see around here, when you have it apart, just go over them and make sure they're tight. Let me just tighten this up. Okay, so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to get the primer assembly plate here. Now this is what I was talking about before. I'm going to tighten these bolts. I'm not going to go crazy tightening these bolts because I have a feeling, and I'm going to go real even with this one and this one back and forth. And this one just mounts to the bracket here. And I'm hoping that we don't have any problems with this being warped. The gasket's in really good shape here until I almost broke the gasket. But I do have another one that's like that. But we're going to try this one first and see what happens with it. Worst comes to worst, I'll have to change them out. I have other ones of these that I don't think that are warped, but I don't know. These are really good engines, but I'm not too crazy about how they designed this here. And I notice all my friends are complaining about this. I'll get them all started first. I'll get this one started. I'm not going to go crazy tightening these. I'm just going to give them a little tweak. The worst that could happen is if they back out or anything, the air filter will stop it from, well, I hope the air filter would stop it from shooting into the engine through the carburetor intake manifold. But I'm not going to leave them loose. I'm just saying, I'm not going to go crazy. Like I told you, on the other engine, somebody really went crazy with them because they were probably having a problem with the primer, you know? So once I get gas in there and I get gas flowing through the carburetor, I should have put the fuel line on first, but I didn't. That's alright. I'll be able to get the clamp back on it, I hope. So we'll do that next. I emptied out the gas out of this gas tank. I'm going to try something, and I don't know if it's going to work. I'm going to try to just put the clamp where it belongs and just push the thing on. And I'll put the clamp where I can get to it if I have to. So let's see if we can do that. We're not using that oil thing. I got the other one all cleaned up, ready to go on. And we're not ready for this yet. We're not even ready for that yet. I gotta put the top cover on. If I could just slide this on there and just leave it slid back a little bit, it'll be alright. Okay, I was able to get it on there with the clamp in its place. So I think we're alright with that. I'll just slide this out of the way and I'll put the top cover on now. I'm doing everything ass backwards. I mean, there was no harm in putting the tank on now, but it's better to just put this on first. So I painted all this where you could see. And like I said, from the factory, they don't do the best paint jobs in the world on these things. Now what you want to do is make sure your spark plug wire is positioned in the right position here, because you don't want to crush it. And I think it goes down between general idea. This is taking too long. I'll get back to you in a second. So just to hurry things up a little bit, I put the 4 bolts in here that hold the cover on. And my main concern was the spark plug wire. You don't want to get it pinched in between the cover and the top of the head here. It has to go on a certain way. I ran this a little bit of a different way, but it's not interfering with anything and it's clear of everything. And I like this way even better. Let me just show you real quick. I just got it run in here. This way it's not pinched. I think they usually run down this way or something like that. But I like to keep everything away from the sharp edges. That's just me. I don't know. Looks like it's going to rain again. By the way, it did rain after I painted the engine, and it rained on the engine and the cover. That's one of the reasons why I don't do any outside repairs anymore. It was too stressful with the weather and everything working outside here. But that's only part of the reason. I can feel the raindrops already. Okay, so what I did now is I just put my dipstick tube in here, and then I'll show you. There's 4 bolts like this. One goes in here, and the other 2 go on top of the gas tank assembly cover, which I'll show you. Just snug that up. Well, that don't feel right. It's no wonder this, I could shake this before. I don't know if this got cross-threaded or. I don't know if that's going in right either. Nope, it's not right. Yeah, because I was shaking it when it was on the other engine and it was. I'm going to have to try to deal with that, whether I put a couple of washers on there, because it's not tightening down right. Okay, so I pressed my luck with that. I took the bolt, I sprayed a little WD on there, and it would only go in so far, and then it would hardly turn anymore, but I just went for it, and I tightened it down until this doesn't move anymore, so we're good with that. Now we can put our gas tank assembly back on. It's starting to rain, so we might have to pause for a second and see what happens here. Okay, so you got 3 more of those bolts like I was showing you before that held the dipstick tube in. We have 3 of those. Where's the socket at now? Here it is. I think. So we're going to start these bolts here up on top. Got those started. And then we have this spacer here, and then we have this bolt, and this spacer has to go between the tank and the engine. Let's see if I have it. Yeah. So what you're going to want to do is reach under here and get the spacer up between the tank and the engine. And then you're going to stick this bolt through here. It's all easier said than done, though. You know that, right? Just to make that clear. Now I'm going to put the 3/8. It's a 3/8 bolt, so I'm just going to use the regular driver here to try to get it started. I think I got it started. And then we'll tighten it up with the 1/4" ratchet. And then we can't forget to tighten up our 3 5/16 bolts on top. I've done that before. Everything that I'm trying to tell you not to do, I've done. That's another good thing about making videos. You could always, I always proofread my videos before I download them, because you have to edit them too. And you can see if you missed something. That's why I was saying, if you're not going to take pictures, just, if you're not going to make videos, just take pictures of how everything goes before you take it apart and everything. This is a big help. One thing that I have to do is I have to put oil in it right now, because you know what? I almost forgot already. So I'm going to put oil in it, and I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I'm going to snap our shut-off cable back on. What I do is I just take a pair of dikes here and just get it on here. And then what you're going to want to do is you want to hook this into the bracket here, so to put it in the right way instead of upside down. Okay, that's in. That doesn't feel too cool. It's like there's no, I guess that's alright. Let me see what that feels like. Yeah, I think it's pushing it enough. Yeah. I'm going to spray that linkage a little bit too in here. Which should have been done. Should have been done before I got to this point, but it'll work its way in there. Alright, that's good. Alright, so it took a half a quart of oil, 500 ml, that is. 1 pint, so the oil's full. I popped the new spark plug in, and I put some gas in it, and now my biggest fear is if it's going to prime. That's the big problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set it back down on the ground, and we'll see if we can start it up. It sounds like the primer's working, but I'm not quite sure. So I stuck the air filter housing back on it, and I primed it, and let's see if it starts. So the only thing I have left to do is I have to put the top cover back on, and I have to service the height adjusters and polish it up, and it'll be done. If we don't have a problem with the primer. I don't know if that's pushing. I don't know if that cable's pushing the lever in far enough. Not sure. I'll pull the plug out and see what's going on for now. Well, nothing's going on. I sprayed a little brake clean in the spark plug hole. See if it'll fire up now. No, it still has that little miss in it. You're probably carburetor related. Like I said, I just gave it a quick little cleaning without taking it apart. And the primer seems to be working, because I can see the gas fumes coming out of the exhaust when I prime it. So I'm just going to let it set, I don't know, about 5 minutes or so. And we'll see if I can prime it and start it back up again. I'm going to try to start it without priming it, and then I'll prime it. If it doesn't start, I'll prime it to see if it'll start that. Well, I'm still gonna have to take the carburetor off. I really didn't want it to start right now. I wanted to prime it and then start it, you know. So I just have to let it sit longer and see what happens with it. I'm not happy with the way it runs. Still has that mist in it. Sometimes I've cleaned these carburetors out like 3 or 4 times and it still runs the same. But I'm gonna try my luck at taking the carburetor off, take it all apart, and see if I could clean it out. That's going to be it on this one, and there'll probably be a part 3, but the part 3 won't be too long. I'll probably take the carburetor off and clean it and see what happens then. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.